The reported friend of David, someone who was arrested, someone who allegedly testified in front of a grand jury hearing evidence in the case involving the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the man known as Neo Langston, just took to Instagram, and he had a lot to say. It was quite revealing, and he seemingly threw David under the bus. We're going to break down what he posted and what this means. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. I gotta say, I wasn't expecting this, okay? This is an interesting update in the David Celeste Rivas Hernandez case that we want to talk about, and it concerns Neo Langston. Now, if you've been following us here on Sidebar, you know this is apparently a friend of the romantic homicide singer who was arrested out in Montana back in January on a Los Angeles warrant for reportedly failing to appear as a witness, that he was reportedly arrested at his mom's house and then taken to Los Angeles's Metropolitan Detention Center. He bonded out on a $60,000 bail. He then reportedly testified in front of a grand jury hearing evidence in connection with this case back in February that he allegedly spent about 30 to 45 minutes inside that grand jury room. Relatively short amount of time to testify if you think about it. So you do wonder, did he plead the fifth, right? Did he invoke his right against self-incrimination not to say anything that can be used against him in a criminal case? And also raised a lot of questions about why he was apparently called to testify by the government and wasn't the target of this grand jury probe, right? In other words, why weren't prosecutors maybe pursuing a case against him as a co-defendant here? This raised a lot of questions. Now, I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But again, at the time of this recording, neither David nor anyone else has officially been arrested or charged in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose dismembered and decomposed body was found in the trunk of a car allegedly registered to David back in September in LA. And yes, there has been a lot of speculation, but no confirmation that Celeste and David were in some kind of relationship. Authorities haven't officially come out and said that. But she had been missing for quite some time before her body was found. Now, here's what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to read you what Neo Langston just posted on his Instagram account. And I will tell you, it's quite telling, okay? And I'm curious why he posted it, why of all times right now. I'm going to try to put it into context a bit more. But this is important. This is a big development. So Neo took to Instagram with a series of posts. There was one that said, "I understand due to my silence and the silence in general, it leaves a void of information that everyone wants to fill. But at the end of the day, this case isn't about me. It isn't about you. It's about getting justice for the victim and her family, and I care a lot more about that than trying to fill that void because of public opinion. Obviously wasn't doing my part at first, but now I am. I've stayed loyal to my mindset and I will continue to. I'm not publicly going to give any opinion or emotion about this case because I find it disrespectful and not my place to weigh in on it, especially as it's still ongoing. I'm not going to spam post to justify and perform my feelings and thoughts for the internet, trying to satisfy people who have already made up their minds about me. In time, the record will speak for itself, and I'm moving on with my life." There's another post where he apparently said, "I think the worst part is that I've told so many people that I trust that I thought knew me as a person, my side of things, all for that to be thrown out the window as soon as I get arrested and they slap that bleep's name next to mine." I'm assuming he's referring to David here. "And for the record, the thing I was arrested for, I wasn't even charged. They never filed it, and my warrant was retracted because there is more to the story than what's on the news." Then there's this post. "Thankfully, I'm legally fine in every way, and boy, do I got all my receipts for things. Ha 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 ha." This raises a lot of questions about why he posted this. Obviously, he can't and will not say anything to jeopardize his legal rights, right? Probably instructed by the government to not say anything either if he had spoken in front of the grand jury. Probably his attorney said, don't say anything. I don't even know if his attorney was consulted with this post, but it seems like he's trying to correct whatever misconception or misunderstanding the public has on him or his alleged role in this, because there is a lot of talk about him. And it is interesting, he never really gets into specifics, right? He doesn't mention the crime or the alleged crime, doesn't mention Celeste by name, doesn't mention David by name. We can assume who he's talking about based on the post. He doesn't mention what these receipts are, or what this is in reference to. Is it photos? Is it messages? His account, his testimony? And I don't know if these other people that he's referring to, who he's putting blame, are other witnesses who named him or people in his inner circle who have turned on him. Not entirely sure. But he believes that in due time, based on this post, that his side of the story is going to make the light of day. Interesting. I gotta say this real quick. We cover a lot of concerning things here on Sidebar, so that's why I just want to give a quick shout out to our partner CyberGhost VPN, because have you ever hesitated to connect to public Wi-Fi like in a restaurant, airport, work, school, because you're scared that someone might steal your information? It's totally valid. The truth is, eyes are watching you every time you go online, but there's a solution. CyberGhost VPN. You select one of their hundreds of locations before you browse, and they'll encrypt everything through their secure servers. This way, no one can track your online activity. It works on up to 7 devices at once, so you can share with family and friends. And with just a couple clicks, CyberGhost unlocks exclusive geo-restricted content from over 40 major streamers like Netflix and Prime. And with over 38 million users worldwide and a nearly perfect rating on Trustpilot, CyberGhost, it's one of the most recommended VPNs out there. And look, if you're still not sure, there's a 45-day money-back guarantee and 84% discount plus 4 months free with a link in my description. That's just $2.03 a month to protect your privacy and enjoy unlimited content. Not bad. So don't wait. Click the link in the description. Start browsing safely with CyberGhost VPN. Stay private, stay secure, unlock global content. Get CyberGhost VPN now with 84% off plus 4 months free, risk-free with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Click the link in the description and start protecting your digital life today. Now, his attorney released the statement. And this is according to LA Magazine. My client, Mr. Langston, will not make any public statement at this time as the investigation is ongoing. What I can share is that since returning to Los Angeles, Mr. Langston has fully cooperated with law enforcement and will continue to assist the prosecution as needed. So this makes me think that maybe he didn't plead the fifth. As the investigation continues, it will become clear that Mr. Langston played no part in this heinous crime and that he was and continues to be wrongfully persecuted in the court of public opinion, resulting in unwarranted and belligerent harassment directed towards my client and his family. So this suggests that there might be a lot that we're not seeing about maybe messages or threats that he and his family are receiving. We sincerely hope that justice is ultimately served for the victim and her family, seemingly Celeste. Do you know who reacted to this? I think you probably have an idea if you've been following us here on Sidebar. Private investigator Steve Fisher, who has been very vocal about this case, both here on Sidebar, on my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, on social media, because as somebody who has been investigating this case from the beginning, remember, he represents the owner of the property where David had apparently been staying in Los Angeles, near where that Tesla was ultimately found. He is very disappointed there have not been arrests yet. And he believes, and he has, again, been very vocal about this, that he believes others are involved in some way. So he wrote this in response to Neo's post. Quote, so here's the thing, Neo. If you have to tell my side of things, that means you were involved in the things. You just want everyone to believe you did less of the things. People who weren't involved don't have a my side of things. And how tone deaf are you exactly? Your Weep For Me post has 11 references to you and not a single mention of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, who is dead. She's dead because of the things you're trying to explain away. Nobody cares about your feelings, Neo. This is about Celeste and justice in her name. Hashtag Neo the Asian. Hashtag David. Okay, now as I mentioned, Steve has been quite vocal about Neo. This, by the way, is just to give you an example, is from a previous episode of Sidebar when I talked to Steve, and this is when he referenced Neo's arrest. This is what you said in part, the arrest of Neil Langston for failure to appear to give testimony, which are the exact words used by the sheriff's department when speaking with me, concerns me to a certain extent, assuming this arrest is related to the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. Targets are not typically called to testify in a case. At the state level, target letters are not always required, but issuing a subpoena to a target without providing notice is extremely risky. A defense attorney would likely argue that any testimony was coerced. Had Neo received a target letter, he almost certainly would have retained counsel and invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. That makes me think that he is viewed as a witness rather than someone currently at risk of being charged. Did one person act alone in concealing Celeste's body? If this was a homicide, did a single individual act alone without a conspirator? I find that unlikely. This leads me to believe that Neo may represent a last-ditch effort by prosecutors, a Hail Mary of sorts, because they do not yet have what they need to fully make the case. They may be attempting to pressure him into cooperating, potentially by offering immunity. Is Neo the last hope? So Steve, just to break that down for a second, I hear exactly what you're saying. In other words, there's a possibility here that Neo may be involved in what happened to Celeste, and bringing him in strictly as a witness as opposed to somebody that the grand jury can issue an indictment against. I could hear your concern. Something I mentioned on my show, and I'll mention with you again, is there is always the possibility that, assuming for a moment that Neo and David are connected to this, he could be testifying against David, he could be testifying against David and another individual or another individual. There could be people, Neo might just have knowledge of something and not actually be a part of whatever happened to Celeste, right? That's still a possibility.
Absolutely, it is. But there is more. I think I'm looking at this whole situation a little bit broader than just the homicide. I understand the homicide is what we're looking for, but Celeste was trafficked, and listen, there's messages back and forth. They knew her age, and so it's not just that. Listen, there's sex crimes against this girl, and there's certain people that knew what was going on. There's certain people that gave rides to her back and forth, even to Lake Elsinore, and so it's not just the homicide for me. I just think that this is one of these things where we got to start standing up for these young girls that are just taken advantage of by these predators. And I hope it's not a situation where it's like, we can't make the homicide, we just can't get there with it and let it go, because there is other crimes, whether it's concealment of the body, whether it's anybody that helped in facilitating her to stay with David. And so it's not just the homicide. It's just everything that happened to Celeste. It's the whole breakdown.
So it is interesting for Neo to post this and think about what he may be testified to and what his alleged role is in all of this, and why the government seemingly needs him as that kind of connective tissue, right, to get to David. I mean, that seems to be the argument here. And this is especially important considering the biggest update we had in this case on our previous sidebar, how could we forget this, that there was official court paperwork that was filed seemingly confirming there is an active criminal investigation case against David for murder. Remember, actually, it was Steve who was the one who posted this information, and then we got our hands on the court paperwork. But Steve posted, in a petition for attendance to compel David's family members to appear before a grand jury, it's disclosed that Celeste Rivas Hernandez's head and torso were found in a cadaver bag, her severed arms and legs in a second bag. David Burke is the target of the grand jury for one count of murder. And when you read from the screenshots, and again, we have the filings from this, it said the people of the state of California v. David Burke, Nathan Hochman at the top, he's the Los Angeles County District Attorney, Beth Silverman too, who we believe is the attorney prosecuting this case. So confirming, again, this is a real case. They're the prosecutors. There was even video or pictures of her coming in and out of court. It goes on to say that there is now pending in the Superior Court of the County of Los Angeles the above entitled grand jury investigation by the state of California against target David Burke. David, that's his real name, David, wherein target may be involved in having committed the following criminal offenses against the laws of the state of California, to wit, one count of murder. And when I looked up the penal code that was allegedly broken here, murder is the unlawful killing of a human being or a fetus with malice aforethought, basically an intentional killing. The filing goes on to say, on September 8th, 2025, at approximately 10:30 hours, Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD detectives received a phone call from the manager of Hollywood Area Official Police Garage. The manager stated a black Tesla Model X had been impounded as an abandoned vehicle by the Department of Transportation on September 5th, 2025. The manager told police there was a strong smell of decay coming from the vehicle, which was attracting flies. LAPD detectives responded to the Hollywood tow yard to investigate. Detectives approached the vehicle, which was parked on the upper deck of the impound lot, and immediately noticed the smell of decaying biological material consistent with a decomposing corpse coming from the front storage compartment of the vehicle. Detectives obtained a search warrant for the vehicle, and when the front storage compartment was opened, detectives observed a black cadaver bag covered with insects and a strong odor of decay. Utilizing black latex gloves, detectives partially unzipped the bag and observed a decomposed head and torso. Investigators and criminalists from the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner responded to the tow yard to process the decomposed body. Upon removing the cadaver bag from the front storage compartment, it was discovered the arms and legs had been severed from the body. A second black bag was discovered underneath the cadaver bag. Upon opening the second bag, the dismembered body parts were discovered. Detectives were advised that on August 26, 2025, a citizen reported the above-mentioned Tesla as an abandoned vehicle parked across from. On August 27, 2025, Department of Transportation officers responded to and marked the vehicle. On September 3, 2025, Department of Transportation returned to the vehicle and issued a citation. On September 5, 2025, Department of Transportation impounded the vehicle to Hollywood Area Tow. It was noted the Tesla was registered to target David Anthony Burke in Hempstead, Texas. David, who is a singer and performing artist, was on tour at the time his vehicle was impounded. And Steve Fisher, in an X post at the time, talked about his frustrations, talked about Neo. Quote, Celeste Rivas Hernandez deserves better. It's infuriating that we're approaching 6 months and no charges have been filed in her murder. If the evidence hasn't been secured by now, what exactly is happening? Is this a blown investigation? We now know these monsters sawed off Celeste's arms and legs. Let's not call it dismemberment. That word sounds clinical, like a surgeon removed her limbs. This is not what happened. A vicious, sick group of people brutally hacked her arms and legs off her body. Was she alive when they started? And yes, I am using plural terms because in my professional opinion, there is no way one person did this alone, whether participating directly or acting as an accessory. Yet only one individual is named as a target in the court filings. Like you, Neo Christopher Langston, you knew. I've seen family members publicly defend him and threaten lawsuits against anyone who names him. Sue me. I beg you, please sue me. Give me subpoena power. Give me the power of discovery, because that may be the only way the truth comes out. Discovery is the exchange of information in any lawsuit, and sometimes that can be why people don't file a lawsuit, because they don't want information being seen or shared. I beg if you file that defamation suit. How do people like David, Neo, and Asia live with themselves? 6 months, no charges, no press conference. But LAPD and the district attorney's office did issue a press release stating they had the medical examiner's autopsy and investigative findings sealed so detectives could review them first, claiming it was not meant to undermine transparency. They got that information, yet the records remained sealed. That press release misled the public. That press release was a lie. Another press release suggested the only potential criminal culpability might be concealment of a body. He's referring to earlier statements by the LAPD. They said that knowing Celeste's arms and legs had been sawed off, you came out with that press release knowing what had been done to her? If they do not have enough evidence to charge those responsible, then they need to say that plainly. Admit that after nearly 6 months, the investigation has not produced sufficient evidence to charge David Anthony Burke or anyone else who participated or was an accessory. Admit it's a blown investigation. Admit that important evidence was left behind after the search warrant. Admit that critical surveillance was lost because nobody followed up to obtain it. Celeste's head and torso were placed in one cadaver bag. Her arms and legs were placed in another. Someone purchased cadaver bag, cut her apart, placed her remains inside those bags, put her in the trunk of a Tesla, and went on with their lives. They purchased cadaver bags. They went to the extent of purchasing cadaver bags. And still, 6 months later, there were no charges, no accountability, silence, sealed records. Threaten me with contempt all you want. I will proudly take that contempt charge in the pursuit of justice for Celeste Rivas Hernandez. 6 months is enough. Do your sworn duty or admit the case was failed. We need to let the LAPD and the DA's office know we are mad and this is not acceptable, and I wish her family would do the same. Here is the full 151-page court filing for anyone willing to read it. David Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Now, that seemed to be in reference to, he had said this previously, that it seemed the DA's office was going to come after him for speaking publicly about the case, considering he may have testified in front of the grand jury. But to give you an idea, by the way, another idea of Neo and his supposed connection to all of this, last month, Steve Fisher posted this too. 4 photos, okay, including 1 or 2 that appear to be of Neo. And it says, on December 31st, 2024, at around 10 p.m., several people were at David's house. Although Celeste Rivas Hernandez is not clearly visible in any of the photos from that evening, we believe she was present. The iPhone she had previously been pictured with appears to match the phone and case seen on the table, along with a Hello Kitty mug. Another photo, which appears to have been taken by David, shows what are likely Celeste's fingers on a bottle. The phone that is likely Celeste appears to be on the Wi-Fi settings screen and connected to the Wi-Fi network. Even though iPhones use a private Wi-Fi address feature, the address remains fixed for a specific network, meaning it stays the same each time that device reconnects to that router. Hopefully, law enforcement investigators have reviewed the router logs to determine exactly when Celeste's phone and everyone else's phones were connected to the home's Wi-Fi network and compared that information against the statements each person provided about when they were at the house and who else was there, including Celeste. For example, if individuals in the photos, including these photos and many others, claim they did not see Celeste or were not at the house, yet the router logs show their phone was connected to the Wi-Fi, that would raise serious questions. We cannot forget about Celeste or the justice she deserves. It has now been more than 5 months and no charges have been filed. The last photo of Celeste is not from that night. It's from another time and meant to show her phone to compare with the phone on the table. Now, again, I'm doing all of this to put into context Neo's latest statement, okay? And with that in mind, I just want to show you one more thing. I also had a chance to speak previously with former prosecutor, LA attorney Nima Rahmani, who knows this court system well, talked to him about what Neo maybe testified to in front of the grand jury. And he believes that he did testify in front of the grand jury. Here's what Nima had to say.
In LA and at the district attorney's office here, they rarely proceed by grand jury. So grand juries are used in the federal system. They're used in most states back east. Here in LA, they almost always proceed by a complaint and a preliminary hearing. So the fact that we have a grand jury in this case is unusual. Now, obviously, Celeste has been presumed and found dead since at least September, and obviously she was missing for many, many months before that. So the question is, why is the DA's office using a grand jury in this case and not just charging David or other co-conspirators? And they're using the grand jury for an investigative function, and that investigative function is to lock down witnesses like Langston. They're going to plead, they're going to plead. But ideally, in a case like this, where you have an individual who's the target of your investigation, David, and he's surrounded by an entourage, and members of that entourage probably don't want to cooperate or rat or snitch, whatever you want to call it. The DA, Silverman's trying to use this grand jury to lock in their testimony. So when they go to trial, they can't go sideways.
Basically, if they take the stand, this is not what you said in front of the grand jury. You sold the grand jury X, Y, and Z, way to hold them to their feet to the fire. If he really testified only for 30 to 40 minutes, okay, does that make sense for a grand jury witness?
No, usually in a murder case, you're going to expect much more testimony than that. And obviously, look, we know the grand jury can move quickly. There's no defense attorney, so there's really no objections, and things tend to move much faster because there's no ruling on those objections. There's no cross-examination. But obviously, if he's going to be a key witness in a murder case, you would expect more than 30 to 40 minutes of testimony.
Explain what you mean by that. So invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, and why would he do that, and what would that look like?
So if you were to invoke before the grand jury, that would probably be a much faster series of questions and answers. Obviously, he would give his name, some identifying information, but anything related to the disappearance of Celeste Rivas would be met with, I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege. And after that assertion several times, that testimony is going to be over, absent some immunity, which we can talk about. I don't necessarily think that they would have given him an immunity, because if they did, again, I would expect the testimony to be much, much longer. So I don't know if he wasn't cooperative. I don't know if we went through him invoking. Frankly, I don't know if he's represented, if he was arrested and didn't surrender. So there's a lot of unknown questions. But typically, like you said, you'd expect to hear more testimony than that, or something shorter if he was just going to invoke.
I want to peel that back a little bit for a second. So first of all, if he did that and he invoked his fifth, can the grand jury use that against anybody they may be looking at charges for? Is that something they're allowed to consider?
Legally, no. If someone asserts their Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, their right to remain silent can't be used against them, can't be used against anyone else. It's a constitutional right. Now, practically speaking, do grand jurors and trial jurors implicitly say, hey, well, this person invoked, they must be guilty? Maybe. But certainly the law is that they're not supposed to do that.
Let me ask you another question. Have you ever seen a case before where the target of an investigation, a potential defendant in an investigation, has testified and in front of a grand jury, and the grand jury ends up indicting that person? Because I always thought, and I've been part of a grand jury before, it's usually the lead case agent, the lead detective, the victim. It's not the whole case. It's not the whole, everything that's presented during a trial, but it's enough evidence to support probable cause. And then the grand jury comes back and you need a majority to say there's probable cause for an indictment. Have you ever seen a case where, let's say he testified, whatever he testified to, if he testified, whether he invoked the fifth or not, and they might return an indictment against him?
I have seen cases where someone's testified before the grand jury, and because they've lied, they've been prosecuted. But usually the target is not someone that you call into the grand jury, because they're the target of the investigation, right? That's the person that you're trying to indict. Now, there have been instances where it's in a questionable case and the target has wanted to testify and try to explain away their case to the grand jurors, and I haven't allowed that. But typically, there's two types of people you do not put in front of the grand jury: your defendant that you anticipate indicting, or your star witnesses. And the reason you don't put your star witnesses is you're potentially creating impeachment material that can be used against them at trial.
All right, so let's see where this goes next. Interesting development, to say the least. But that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live. I'll see you next time, everybody. Don't wait. Click the link in the description. Start browsing safely with CyberGhost VPN. Stay private, stay secure, unlock global content. Get CyberGhost VPN now with 84% off plus 4 months free, risk-free with a 45-day money-back guarantee. Click the link in the description and start protecting your digital life today. More trouble for popular influencer Clavicular. He reportedly has now been criminally charged in connection with the alleged shooting at what appears to be a dead alligator? Serious charge, bizarre story. We're going to break down this case, how this fits into his other recent alleged episodes too, and what we can predict might happen. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, so as you're watching this and you've been following us here at Law and Crime and you're into content creation or you're putting things out on social media, you might be wondering, how are we able to get all of these clips up so quickly on these rapidly developing stories? Well, we use something called Opus Clip. This is an all-in-one AI editor that makes it so easy to cut, create, and upload videos across any platform. Through AI, Opus Clip generates B-roll, reframes footage, and it even cleans up audio. Again, so easy. You just visit opus.pro/sidebar, you sign up, you upload, and in minutes, you will have perfectly edited clips ready to go. For TikTok, Shorts, Reels, Opus Clip is really your one-stop shop, and having a tool like Opus Clip means that our producers can get you viral courtroom updates instantly. This is the most powerful tool there is to share ideas and edit like a pro. So, go to opus.pro/sidebar to get a free week and then 50% off. So, Clavicular is back in the headlines again for all the wrong reasons. We just did another episode. We had a recent episode where we did a deep dive into how this very popular looks-maxing influencer was sued by a female influencer regarding allegations of non-consensual sex and improperly injecting her face with a drug. You can watch that whole episode out right now on Law and Crime's YouTube page if you're interested in that. But now it looks like he has been criminally charged for a completely different incident. It is being reported that Clavicular, real name Braden Peters, has been hit with a charge in Florida of unlawfully discharging a firearm in a public place or residential property. Now, this, for example, is according to court documents that were obtained by NBC Miami, but this seems to be in connection to a live stream where Clavicular and two of his associates are accused of firing a handgun at what appears to be and what has been described at a dead alligator. This reportedly happened at Francis S. Taylor Everglades Wildlife Management Area, this boat ramp dock, on or about March 26. And by the way, due to YouTube reasons, we can't show the actual video or videos, but we will show you some screenshots. Now, both 20-year-old Clavicular and two other online personalities, they have been charged. So Andrew Morales, 22 years old, known under his influencer handle as Cuban Tarzan, and also 26-year-old Yabdil Anibal Cotto Torres, or Baby Alien. And by the way, the specific charge doesn't indicate that he or his colleagues physically harmed the alligator. However, this comes after the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission said in March that it was, quote, aware of a video depicting individuals in the Everglades on an airboat who appear to be discharging firearms at an alligator. And they apparently launched their own investigation. Now, our understanding is that it is illegal under Florida law to kill or attempt to harm an alligator without authorization from the commission. Now, two sides to every story, right? We're going to get into this a little bit more. Clavicular's legal team has come out. So his attorneys, Stephen Kramer and Jeffrey Neiman, they made a statement, and it says, quote, our client has been summoned to appear for a misdemeanor charge that stems from following the instructions of a licensed airboat guide. He relied on that guidance. No animals or people were harmed. We are confident that once the full picture is understood, people will see this for what it is. Now that's interesting, right? So both kind of, a legal defense and also a PR defense, because obviously this is getting a lot of attention. Arguably, this could be hurting his reputation in some way. So two sides to this. And you see that many times with a public figure who's charged with a crime. Morales' attorney, Richard L. Cooper, also released a statement saying, quote, we urge the public not to rush to judgment. Importantly, there is no allegation that any animal was injured, and the available evidence does not support the sensationalized narrative that is circulated online. My client relied on information and guidance provided by those in authority and had no criminal intent. Now, they're all scheduled to be arraigned on May 20th, and we'll see if it advances there. But remember, this comes at a critical time for Mr. Peters, clavicular. This comes after a series of unfortunate alleged incidents and headlines, right? Clavicular, who has gained quite a following. According to Instagram, he reportedly has almost 600,000 followers, over 145,000 on X, almost 940,000 on TikTok, over 338,000 on the streaming platform Kick. This is a guy who preaches about improving your looks and ascending, providing more value in that way. Again, looks maxing. Not only was he hit with that lawsuit that I mentioned before, but he's also facing other charges in Florida. He was arrested and charged with battery and criminal conspiracy to commit battery in connection with a fight that he allegedly provoked between two women and allegedly posted online in what investigators said was an effort to exploit these women. He also reportedly overdosed on a live stream recently and was taken to the hospital. All right, I want to break this down. I want to break down what it could mean for him, if the other incidents I just talked about could affect this case. So I want to bring in John Phillips, victims' rights lawyer, to talk more about this. So John, thank you so much for taking the time. How serious is this charge?
It's pretty serious. It's not something anybody would want to face, right? And it seems like prosecutors are going to take it seriously and push for a conviction. But at the end of the day, compared to some of the things we cover, it is a misdemeanor of just shooting a gun essentially in public without any provocation.
Well, theoretically, if he's convicted, is it possible, and I'm going to get more into the charge, is it possible he could spend time in jail?
Anything's possible, right? That's the legal answer. I don't necessarily see it unless he infuriates the prosecutors or the judge, because it is a misdemeanor, but it's also done very arrogantly on video, as everything kind of that follows him tends to happen. He does have the other matters going on. He is a bit of a provocateur. It just depends on the judge wanting to set a precedent and giving him a little bit of time to sit in jail and think about it.
Before I get into the charge, whatever he's accused of doing online, or whatever the other cases may be, or if he is controversial, or if he is a provocateur, that's not going to necessarily influence a judge's decision, right? To set an example about, like, because look, let's be honest, right? What are we seeing a lot online? We're seeing younger people doing all these things, gaining a following. They've been criticized for it. But even if a judge has a personal belief that what he's producing is not helpful to society, and that's that's the judge's opinion, that's not going to affect the sentence.
I kind of disagree, because certainly it's not going to affect whether he accepts a plea or is convicted, right? That's up to a jury. But when it comes to the sentencing itself, think about it. Think about a sentencing hearing. Again, this is a small, sentencing hearing, but there are other factors which go into sentencing about the character of the defendant. And again, I don't want to make a mountain out of a relative molehill. Nobody got hurt, right? The alligator apparently was already dead, but you can take into accountability the nature this will have on other people. And a good judge would say, part of my job here sitting on this bench is to deter crime. And if I let you just walk away, how have I deterred crime? And in fact, I'm encouraging crime. I'm encouraging others to follow in your footsteps. So, sir, we're going to give you a week in jail. I think that's how that would play out. But it can come in Florida when it comes to ultimately a judge's discretion in deciding a sentence.
Let me go into the actual statute, and I want to talk about how they might prove that. And correct me, I think this is the correct one, 790.15. It says, except as provided in these different subsections, any person who knowingly discharges a firearm in any public place or in the right-of-way of any paved public road, highway, or street, who knowingly discharges any firearm over the right-of-way of any paved public road, highway, or street, or over any occupied premises, or who recklessly or negligently discharges a firearm outdoors on any property used primarily as the site of a dwelling or zoned exclusively for residential use, commits a misdemeanor of the first degree. This section does not apply to a person lawfully defending life or property or performing official duties requiring the discharge of a firearm, or to a person discharging a firearm on public roads or properties expressly approved for hunting by the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission or Florida Forest Service. What does that mean to you? Is it very straightforward to prove this? And let's go back to it. How important is that purported video laying this out, or allegedly laying this out?
The video is absolutely important. And so is one line in that video. And that's, can we dump around into it, right? That shows intent. That shows I'm going to fire this gun, not because I have to, but because I want to. And certainly if you're out hunting with a license, that's one thing, but getting a boat captain, an airboat captain at that, to give you permission means nothing under Florida law. And
so let's talk about that, because you saw the lawyer's statement, right? The lawyer's statement was like he was relying on the guidance of this guy. That's not a defense.
It's not a defense. So if I have a chauffeur in a car and I say, can I shoot my gun out the window? And he says, sure, why not?
Well, wait a minute. Isn't the of course you're in a okay, different, right? You're on the highway. You should know better.
100% different.
If you're in this specific area of Florida, which not everybody's been to, and you're being driven out there on this tour, and they're like, yeah, you can fire out there. Isn't it a little different?
No, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and that's what the whole meat of the case is going to be. Is arguing that, can I dump around into it? Sure, is some sort of tantamount license. And it's not. And the Florida law is pretty clear on that he wouldn't otherwise be able to give consent to break the law. And I'll tell you something else. People know that I represented Joe Exotic and got into the Carol Baskin world. And I've dealt with a lot of tigers and a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Florida wildlife does not mess around. Like, they are one of the most stern, Oklahoma, probably number one, as we learned. But state and federal wildlife agents take these things very seriously. And their law enforcement officers are going to be the ones explaining why an airboat captain can't give consent on how to use firearms just for your own purpose, to dump around into a dead animal.
Could he, if he's being brought up on this charge and saying I was relying, can he file a lawsuit? I mean, anybody can file a lawsuit, but would he have a legitimate claim against the airboat captain, the company there? You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and if he called, would I take it? This is kind of how I'm looking, and I do love a celebrity case every now and again. I don't think so, because you're looking at kind of the false arrest, malicious prosecution, negligent giving of advice that led me to be arrested and prosecuted for what damages ultimately your attorney's fees, I guess.
Yeah. Harm to his reputation. I don't know. I mean, he's getting. We're not the only ones reporting this. It's like in almost.
That's right.
I think the New York Times even published it.
Well, law and crime is the thought leader in American
well, thank you. I
jurisprudence, but New York Times. But I mean, you can sue for anything, and you could certainly do a demand letter, but I have a feeling that that's not gonna go very far, and I don't think it fits his style either. Filing that lawsuit isn't very looks maxing. You'd want to win it. You'd want to be like, oh, I got away with it. Ultimately, I didn't even have to go to jail. Like, I don't think he practically would, but certainly if he called, I'd take his call and think about it.
Well, look, his lawyers and this other individual's lawyers released statements looking like they're going to fight it. So you say maybe not looks maxing, try to show I did nothing wrong. Where do you think this goes? Do you think that they move forward towards a trial and mount a defense? And what would that defense look like?
I do think you're going to have to argue a level of licensing, because the video shows the crime, and again, it's coupled with intent of, and I'm looking at my note again. Can we dump around into it? I don't know how you get out of that. I don't think the fact that the alligator was dead or alive matters whatsoever, because it's not killing or harming wildlife. It's just discharging the firearm here. And ultimately, I just think the prosecutors are going to make an offer that he can't refuse. Make a donation to whatever cause, or just get past it. But right now, this is the hot thing, and they're not going to let it go while it's being reported.
So, in other words, you say there's a possibility they could work on some sort of plea deal and maybe not get any jail time or some, probation, maybe, community service, a fine. What about the other cases? I mentioned, you put the lawsuit to the side, but those other misdemeanor charges he's facing, can that factor into this case at all?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks like a battery warrant from Osceola was already active.
Allegedly that he instigated this fight between two women and recorded it.
Right. And that's like, I've got a 14, 11, and 8-year-old. So I'm a little bit on that periphery. I know the 6, 7 of the world, but I'm not into this guy particularly. I'm more into the Steve-O, Joe Exotic era of things, as his age maybe. But anytime you're a reckless individual, even if it's for views, there's going to be prosecutors and police that don't want you, and government agents that don't want you in their city and feel like they've got to set a standard. And that's long been the case with, hard rockers and rappers that have found themselves in trouble. But now we've got this, level of influencer. And it's one thing if you're Jake Paul or you're Mr. Beast, and you're not really harming anybody. It's another when taunting and bullying is your social media influence.
He would probably counter that and say he's trying to help people, but I'm not his lawyer. I'm not his, I think that he would say he was trying to help people. Let me ask you this: is it possible there could be any other charges? Because I said at the beginning, it's not directly related to the gator, right? I mean, is there anything else that he could be charged with respect to this alleged incident?
The one thing that I was trying to figure out this morning looking at this is, they're charging him with just a firearm in a public space. And I believe that area was a level of a protected park, right? I'm talking about Everglades kind of place, I think. And I was wondering if there might be a heightened state or federal charge because you're essentially discharging a firearm in a park. On government land. That was the thing this morning, literally sitting in criminal court down in Jacksonville, Duval County. I was reading about it thinking, is there an upcharge here? But FWC, Florida Wildlife, tends to be pretty aggressive. So I'd assume that this is where they're headed.
First of all, I'm very flattered that while you're in court, you're thinking of Jesse Weber's Sidebar. The judge says to you, Mr. Phillips, what, you didn't answer my question. Sorry, thinking about Jesse Weber. That's fine. I think that would be a good defense.
Judge Salem would have loved that and said, tell him hello, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Thank you so much. It's interesting. Look, it's an interesting development that we spoke about him recently with respect to his lawsuit. We'll see where this develops, but always appreciate you taking the time, John. Thank you.
A pleasure.
That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next time, everybody. A Florida woman used a gun to solve her relationship problems, bursting into her ex's apartment and shooting the man in her bed.
She crazy. I know she crazy. I've seen her trying to break my window, and then I seen her shoot at my car a good 3-4 times.
LaCoria Washington was convicted of shooting Jason Campbell, who stumbled out of a fifth-floor apartment, leaving a trail of blood behind as he tried to get outside and find help. He was soon found dead in the parking lot, wearing only the boxers that he'd been sleeping in.
See a man downstairs in the parking lot, and he's bleeding instead of a car.
And the shooter took off, tried to hide out in another county, but police tracked her down.
You got a warrant for charges of first-degree murder, burglary.
And it wasn't just Washington's arrest and eventual conviction that made headlines. No, Jason's family filed a massive lawsuit against the apartment complex and the security team that arguably could have prevented his death. And a jury agreed, awarded them a huge sum. We're going to be sitting down with the law firm behind this lawsuit. Our sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, they were able to secure a $100 million verdict for the family members that Jason leaves behind. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. By the way, one of the reasons we can follow a story like this is because of the incredible support that we get from our sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest personal injury law firm. This is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys who've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months alone, a client in Florida received $12 million when insurance offered just $350,000. Out in Pennsylvania, another client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's offer. And Morgan & Morgan, they make it easy to fight for what you deserve. You can even start a claim from your phone. So if you're injured, you can start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar. You can click the link below, or you can scan the QR code on screen. Jason Campbell, father to 3 young children, the son of a former Florida state senator. He was just 23 years old when he was gunned down inside of a Miami area apartment. And while his girlfriend's ex stood trial for his murder, his devastated family filed a massive wrongful death lawsuit saying if the complex had just followed its own rules, Jason would still be alive today. And you know what? The jury agreed, returned a $100 million verdict in the Campbell family's favor. And in just a minute, I'm going to be sitting down with 2 distinguished attorneys from the powerhouse law firm, our sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, to talk about how they got involved in this case, how they were able to make such a massive win happen, and what's happening right now. But first, I can't get into that if I don't give you the details. So we got to dig into what happened back in 2021 at the Monte Carlo. Now, I just got to give you a quick note. The units at Monte Carlo, they're referred to as condos and apartments pretty much interchangeably throughout the investigation because some of the units are up for rent. Just want to keep that in mind. But in the Campbell family lawsuit, the defendant is identified as Monte Carlo of Miami Condominium Association, Inc. Okay. Now, according to multiple police and court records, it was just after 8 a.m. on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021, when Miami dispatchers started to get these frantic 911 phone calls. A man's body was in the parking lot of the complex, laying on the ground between 2 cars, and witnesses said they heard someone crying out for help.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
I don't know. I seen food yelling and stuff, and he's bleeding everywhere. And damn, man. I don't know what's going on, man. He got shot like right here because the blood started right
here. Is he? Alright, so is he breathing?
And he look like he gasping for air, but you know what that means, man. Hey, yo, man.
Did you say? So was he shot?
I don't know. Is this 911? Yeah, man, they asked 1,001 questions. Just send somebody, man.
We already have help out there.
Hello? Police fire. Where's your emergency?
Hi, I have somebody I don't know any questions. Please don't ask me any. I just know this guy's shot on the ground. That's all I know. And he's dying.
Okay.
That's all I know. Can you send somebody over?
Can you tell me where the
yes
guy
or no?
is?
And when police got to the scene, they spotted something that would make the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. A trail of blood leading from Jason's body back into the building and all the way up to the stairs to the 5th floor. Bloody handprints were even found on the walls of the stairwell where Jason had fallen in his desperate attempt to try to get away from his killer and find help. But his struggle would end on the pavement outside. And here's the thing. Jason didn't even live at this place. He didn't even live at the Monte Carlo. The woman he was seeing did, I'm talking about Shantia Mears. Now, she had previously been in a relationship with another woman, LaCoria Washington, okay, the defendant in this case. Mears had even told police that she had issues with Washington that went back years, including threats and violence. She spoke with an officer about it during an interview concerning a different interaction with Washington, which we're going to get into in just a minute, but take a look at this.
What's the relationship between you guys?
That's my ex-girlfriend.
When you say ex-girlfriend, just clarification, is that a romantic relationship or?
Romantic, yes.
Okay. How long you guys dated?
For some years.
Years?
Yes.
You guys ever lived together?
No.
All right. And how long ago you broke up?
Months ago.
Months ago?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So security said she let her in, and what happened?
So she let her in, and I had went back in my apartment and locked the door, and she started banging on the door.
Okay. You locked the door. You guys had any previous problems?
Not recently.
What is not recently? When was the last time you had?
In the past few months, no, not recently.
And did she anything in the past that would raise your concern to lock the door?
She crazy. I know she crazy.
But she ever threat to do anything stupid, or she ever?
Not to this extent, no.
Okay, on what extent?
Like shooting at my car, not to that extent.
I know, but what she done before?
She just like cussed me out. Typical cussed me out.
So according to Mears, she and Jason were in bed at 8 a.m. that Tuesday when there was a knock at the door. Now, Mears told police that she assumed it was just somebody from maintenance or pest control, and this is when she made a critical mistake. She apparently didn't check the peephole before she unlocked and opened the door, and it was Washington. Washington pushed past her into the apartment's bedroom and fired, hitting Jason in the chest. Crime scene photos show a bullet hole in the wall, a shell casing on the floor, and police quickly determined that Washington was in fact their prime suspect and that she wasn't even allowed to be on that property in the first place, because that takes us back to around 3 months before this killing. This is when Mears apparently had a different person visiting her, not Jason Campbell, but either way, it seems Washington was not happy.
I noticed I had a missed call from the front gate, so I called them back.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I have a missed call from you, such and such. And then the lady was like, oh yeah, you had a guest at the front gate. I let her in. I was like, who did you let in? And she said, LaCoria. And I was like, you let her in the gate. You wasn't supposed to let her in the gate. And she was like, oh, I didn't know. She said you knew she was coming. I said, that's not how that works. You're supposed to call me, and I'm supposed to give you permission.
Yeah.
If I don't answer the gate, then you don't let them in.
Yeah.
You tell them to turn around and keep pushing, or they gotta wait until I answer the phone. So by that time, she was already in the complex. She crazy. I know she crazy.
She was banging the door?
She was banging on my door for a good 15 minutes.
Do you have like a peephole? Or?
Yeah, I have a peephole.
So you look, you saw it was her?
Mm-hmm. She was like trying to cover it sometimes, and then sometimes I could see her, and I could see her knocking on the door.
Did you see what she was wearing?
She had on a white t-shirt.
The white t-shirt?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did she have anything on her hands? Did you see it?
She had a gun in her hand.
Which hand?
It was in her right hand.
Okay. What kind of gun was it? You see it?
I'm not familiar with guns, but it's a black
Let's see if it was
gun.
black.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever seen her with a gun before?
No, not recently.
But have you ever seen her with a gun?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you see?
When I was looking through the bedroom window, I seen her standing by my car, and I seen her like trying to break my window, and then I seen her shoot at my car a good 3-4 times.
Even though you guys had a relationship, I have to get her information, do a photo lineup. Once I have the photo lineup ready, I'm gonna call you, schedule with you, come here with another detective that has no clue about this, present to you the photo lineup, you ID her. Once you ID her, then I have probable cause to arrest her. So then go and arrest her.
So you can't arrest her right now?
No, you have to do a photo lineup first. So that's gonna be on Tuesday, because I'm off today, Monday. So on Tuesday, I'll put a photo lineup, I'll call you, we'll meet, I'll do a photo lineup, and then we can do the process to arrest her.
Surveillance footage that was released by investigators even corroborates what Mears told them, because in one video, you can see Washington drive up to the guard stack at the Monte Carlo. She waits while security calls Mears, then she's eventually allowed through, and then the security camera footage from inside Mears' building shows Washington getting into the elevator. Then a few minutes later, surveillance shows Washington coming back out into the parking lot, heading for a car on the left-hand side of the screen, and according to a police report, Washington shot out the front passenger window of Mears' black Mercedes-Benz, then takes off running across the parking lot. But I'll tell you what, her crime spree didn't end there because it's kind of difficult to see in the surveillance. But on the way back to her own car, police claim Washington fired at least 2 shots at a red Infiniti, which belonged to the man in Mears' apartment. And then Washington apparently hopped back into her own car and took off. Investigators found 5 .40 caliber casings at the scene. And in addition to recklessly causing damage to the 2 cars, when you do a search of Washington's criminal history, it shows convictions for multiple prior crimes. As a felon, she wasn't supposed to have a gun or ammunition, but it was abundantly clear from the video that she had both. Charges connected to that shooting would later be rolled into her murder case. And a couple weeks after that shooting, in March, police spoke with Mears again, except this time, she was reluctant to say much on the record.
So going back to February 22nd, where the police went to your apartment complex over there, what's the reason the police went there?
Honestly, I feel more comfortable doing all this with legal representation.
You're not under arrest.
I know, but I feel more comfortable doing it with a lawyer.
You understand what the city attorney told you, right?
Somewhat.
Okay. So you don't want to talk to me right now?
I feel more comfortable with a lawyer.
So you don't want to talk to me right now?
Until I get a lawyer.
Okay, you're not under arrest. I'm not asking you incriminating questions, so you don't have that right now. You're talking to me as a witness and a victim. So the Miranda warnings or, have the right to remain silent doesn't work right now.
I don't want to be a witness or a victim.
Okay, no problem. So you also don't want to do the photo lineup?
I just have to do it with a lawyer.
Okay, no problem. The state attorney is going to contact you, okay?
And just 3 months later, Washington would be back on that Monte Carlo property, despite a sign in the guardhouse alerting security that her vehicle was banned. And one day after Jason was shot and killed, detectives spoke with the guard who was on duty the previous morning. This is Deshaun Atkins.
And what are your duties or patrol area within your job?
To log in visitors when they come into the gate.
And that's the front gate, correct?
Correct.
And just to verify, there's only one entrance and one exit, correct?
Correct.
Were you working at the Monte Carlo's apartment on yesterday, June 1st, 2021?
Yes.
What was your shift yesterday?
7 to 3.
What time did you start work?
At 7.
At some point during the day yesterday, did you become aware of an incident involving one of your tenants in the complex?
Yes.
Do you know what the incident was about or what apartment it occurred in?
Not at the moment until afterwards, after the police came and everything was settled. And then a lot of, resident was coming and telling me.
So the detective showed Atkins a set of photographs, and she was able to identify both Mears and Washington, though she referred to Mears as Miss Mills.
And when you say her girlfriend, who are you referring to?
Miss Mills, resident.
Okay, for the record, the person in photograph number 2 is LaCoria Washington. And you state she's the girlfriend of the person. And how do you know that information?
Because a while back, a couple of months ago, she came inside and she shot the girl Mills' car and a gentleman car. And once we did all our little investigation, we found out that it was her girlfriend. And so that's how, I know that's, they say it's her girlfriend.
Okay. If I'm correct, after that incident, it was documented on February 22nd, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Did the apartment complex put out information pertaining to her?
Well, the only thing they put out to her that her vehicle that she was in could not come on the premises anymore, on the property.
I also showed you a photograph depicted as number 3 of a person that was caught on video surveillance entering the complex. I'm going to show you that same photograph now. You looked at that photograph and identified that photograph as the same person we're talking about.
Yes.
You stated on the photograph that this is also the girlfriend of the person as she walked in yesterday.
Yesterday morning. Yes.
And
it was right before 8 o'clock that she walked in.
And in this photograph she's wearing, can you tell me what she's wearing?
All black, a black hoodie with black and yellow slides.
And this is the person you saw
yesterday morning, correct.
And Atkins confirms that she saw Washington the morning of the shooting, but she wasn't in the banned vehicle.
And do you know why she would have been on foot?
Because her vehicle is banned, so she can't drive inside the apartments complex because her vehicle is banned from the previous incident that she did. So she already knows she can't drive in because we can't provide her with no pass or allow her to go inside at all with that vehicle.
And do you know whether or not she's done that on other occasions?
Yes, she has.
Meaning she would park her vehicle outside
and walk in, correct.
And then she would leave the same way?
Yes, sometimes. Or she probably be, if I see her in the mornings, she walk in the morning, I get off at 3, so I don't see her by the time I leave. She probably leave later on that day or something like that. So I'm not aware.
While you were in your post or in your post yesterday, did you happen to hear any shots fired, any shooting?
No, that's the strange thing. I didn't hear anything.
Did any one of the residents actually come up to you at any point in time and stated that they heard or seen anything?
No, because they were saying when they seen everything going on, they didn't hear any gunshots as well. They said they didn't hear anything. Because normally, like, if they do hear anything, they'll call the guard gate and like, is everything okay? Because I heard this or I heard that. And it wasn't nothing was said.
So Miami-Dade authorities, they put out an arrest warrant for Washington. And police caught up with her a few weeks later in Port Orange. So you're talking nearly 4 hours north of Miami.
Fish car here for me, ma'am? It's right here.
Why are you laughing? Because I know you got one too. I only help you when around that guy. Because he gives that look.
Come on, babe.
Come on, bro.
You can't be eating pulled pork all day, man.
I know, bro. If I do it on him,
I told him, y'all gotta try Bucky's before y'all leave.
Yeah?
Yeah. All right. Put cuffs on him, man. All right. Have a seat back here for me, all right? You call him. I'm actually calling him. Real quick, man, what's your first name?
Y'all came here for a warrant, right?
Yeah, well, I'm just helping out because I'm not part of all this, all right, as you can see. Well, can you just give it to me and make it easier?
Washington.
Can you spell that for me?
Lakoria, last name Washington.
What's your middle name, Miss Washington?
Shamiz.
With a C or an H?
S.
Excuse me, S. All right. And your birthday? Your birthday for me?
9/13/1996.
All right, you said the first name was Lakoria? Okay. She's less than friendly. She really doesn't have much to hide something, or much to hide where she hides something, but... Officer Manchester's gonna make sure you don't have anything hidden in your bra underwear.
No clothes on,
we still gotta make sure people can hide stuff everywhere.
Alright, I'll have you step out right here for me. Just face the vehicle. Nothing sharp, right?
So officers in Port Orange, they know that there's a warrant out for her arrest, but they don't have all the details. So Washington kind of feigns ignorance. Take a look.
So I don't know. So I'm supposed to know why I'm in handcuffs.
I mean, technically, you don't really have to know why legally, but I can tell you it's because you have a warrant. You got a warrant for charges of first-degree murder, burglary with, well, they're kind of mixed up here. Looks like burglary while armed, and it looks like a felon in possession of a weapon, if I'm reading this right. They use a bunch of abbreviations, but that's your charges. You got no bond. And it's from Miami-Dade.
So how could they just accuse me of something? Where's the statement? Where's the evidence? What do they have?
That's something to handle in court, not right now. Right now, all that matters is you have a warrant for your arrest and you're under arrest.
Now, in the end, Washington was booked into the jail in Volusia County. This is before being transferred back to the southern part of the state.
All right, Miss Washington, step out for me, please. We're just going to walk inside over here for a little bit.
The least y'all they could have did is gave me some clothes, man.
Well, I wasn't there for that decision. I don't have any control over it.
Was this intimate?
No, these are holding cells. Step off the lift for me, please. Thank you. I'll see you on the bench for a moment.
So in Miami-Dade County, Washington faced 5 charges: first-degree murder, armed burglary with assault or battery, aggravated stalking with a firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession of a weapon, ammunition by convicted felon. Now, prosecutors agreed to downgrade this. So the first-degree murder charge was moved down to second degree. They agreed to drop the other charges if Washington entered a guilty plea. And look, Washington, in the end, she changed her plea. She was sentenced on July 5th, 2025 to 12 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation. She's currently serving her sentence at Gadsden Correctional Facility. This is a women's prison in Quincy, Florida. Now, during all of this, putting the criminal case to the side, there was a wrongful death lawsuit, okay? 23-year-old Jason Campbell was the son of Daphne Campbell, who had previously served as a state senator in the Florida legislature for 8 years. The day after Jason was killed, she posted an update to her Facebook page saying in part, quote, "Carry a child for 9 months with difficulties and end up having a C-section. And after 23 years, you receive bad news. Someone shoots and kills your son." And she says she lost her son to gun violence while he was sleeping, writing, "The killer do not have no heart and killed my son, my handsome son, and left 3 kids fatherless." So Campbell filed a wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of Jason's estate. And she named 3 companies here: Monte Carlo, a Miami condominium association, AKAM Onsite Inc., which was hired as a property management firm for the complex, and EMS Protective Group, which had been hired to provide security. This is based on a recommendation from AKAM. Now, there were hundreds of court documents that were submitted since the case was filed in January of 2022, but the plaintiff's statement of the case kind of lays out the arguments here. Quote, specifically, on February 21st, 2021, LaCoria Washington was allowed to drive onto the premises through the front gate by Kent Security, EMS's predecessor, which is not a party to this lawsuit, in violation of the property's protocols requiring tenant approval for non-resident entry. LaCoria Washington claimed to be visiting Shantia Mears as tenant. However, Miss Mears did not grant access to LaCoria Washington. When Miss Mears refused to open her door, LaCoria Washington walked to the parking lot where she fired multiple shots into the vehicles of Miss Mears and Miss Mears' male guest. That February 2021 male guest was not Jason Campbell. Approximately 3 months later, on June 1st, 2021, at around 8 a.m., LaCoria Washington, while banned from the property, returned to the premises on foot and walked through the vehicle access gate. Miss Washington again made her way to Miss Mears' door and knocked. Miss Mears opened the door without looking into the peephole, believing it to be property management or pest control. LaCoria Washington rushed into the apartment's bedroom with a handgun and shot Jason Campbell in the chest. Jason later died from that gunshot wound. So the lawsuit accused each of the 3 companies of negligence. Quote, defendants Monte Carlo, AKAM, and EMS were aware of the February 22, 2021 incident and failed to take reasonable measures to prevent Washington and uninvited persons with criminal intent like Washington from gaining access and committing crimes on the property. So you go to this trial. Now, this trial lasted a week, and according to an article on the verdict from law.com, it only took about maybe 2 hours for the jury to come back and award a massive sum to these plaintiffs. The verdict form asked the jurors, quote, was there negligence on the part of the following defendants that was a legal cause of Jason Campbell's injuries and death? And there was a check mark by the word yes for all 3 defendants. The jury determined that the property management company, so AKAM, was 57% at fault, with the owners of the condo complex and security group each being 18% at fault. Shantia Mears, the tenant, being 7% at fault, although to be clear, she was not named as a defendant in that lawsuit. But Daphne Campbell was awarded $25 million for her pain and suffering, as was Jason's father, Hubert Campbell. Jason's 3 children, who were just 6, 3, and 1 years old when he died, according to court paperwork, they are going to split the remaining $50 million. Now, in a statement to the Miami Herald, Daphne and Hubert Campbell said, quote, losing our beloved son Jason has caused us unspeakable pain that we would not wish on anyone. This verdict will never bring our son back, but we hope it sends a strong message to all property managers and owners and compels them to provide adequate security before another family suffers like ours has. All right, so now I want to bring in the Morgan & Morgan attorneys that were behind this lawsuit, spearheading it. A lot of questions here. I am joined on set by Thomas Hasty and Grant Gillenwater. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. I got the last names right?
You did.
Okay, good. That's the number one thing. All right, so first of all, explain to me how you both got involved in this.
So the case originally came to me back in 2021, October of 2021, as an intake through our department. Someone called our firm. The family called our firm and said, hey, we want to sign up with you. We had another lawyer, but we don't feel comfortable with what's going on. So they called us for a second opinion. We said, we'd love to look into this for you, and hired us. And then so I litigated the case basically from 2021 to 2024 when I called Grant. And I said, hey, Grant, I've got this case coming to trial, and I need one of the best lawyers in the country. So I called Grant Gillenwater.
Imagine if you said, I need one of the best lawyers in the country. Do you know anybody? Grant, do you know anybody? Anybody you could refer me to?
Well, look, we take trials very seriously at Morgan & Morgan. Obviously, we are not a law firm. We are a trial firm. And one of the great things that John did years ago, it started with Keith Mitnick. He said, we're going to bring in the best lawyers that we can find, and all they're going to do is try cases. So right now, there are 5 of us throughout the country. That's all we do is we try cases. Keith, Rick, Chris, Brian, McLean, myself. All we do is travel the nation trying our biggest cases. And so the perfect storm that we have is folks like Tom that will litigate the case from inception up until a couple months before trial. They call us up they start collaborating with us, and now we're off to the races.
Let me ask you this. Sometimes you have a case, right, and you could say, a roller coaster falls apart, or there's a slip and fall, and you say, I can automatically see something was done here, something was wrong, this shouldn't have happened, this is probably a negligent suit, maybe wrongful death. At first glance, when you hear about this, it's a horrible, horrible crime. Did it stand out to you that someone might be responsible, that there was a lapse in security, that this shouldn't have happened at this condo?
Yes. So the information that we had when we were first hired is that Jason had been killed at this apartment when he was visiting another woman. And so that kind of stuck out to me as a weird fact pattern. How did somebody get to the apartment when Jason was there? If he was visiting someone, how did another person get there to start or engage in this argument, which I assume there was an argument? Because of course when we have the intake, right now we have the hindsight, the benefit of hindsight after 4 years of litigation. But at the outset, all I knew was that he had been killed in the apartment with this woman that he had been visiting. So I thought to myself, this person shouldn't have gotten to the door. We don't know how. We didn't really know if she'd been invited or what. And so, yes, it stood out to us as a fact pattern, which, we should look into the security of this property.
And real quick, from a legal point of view, someone can still be held liable, not for something that happens to the property owner, like the owner of a condo or a tenant, even their visitors, they may have a claim. So in other words, the owner, the management company, a security company, they can still owe a duty to someone visiting that property.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what, Grant, during the course of this case, discovery trial, if you can explain to our audience, what did you learn about the lapses in the management's responsibility, the property owner, the security company? What did you learn?
So what we found out and what we got through discovery is we see that no one knew what was going on. Every entity who was involved in that property was all kept in the dark, seemingly by each other. So you've got the property management company whose job it is to perform the day-to-day operations. Their job is to make sure that they're communicating what's going on that property to the board. Then you've got the board, the condo owners themselves, the board of the condo owners, whose job it is to make decisions, to cut the budget, to say, all right, look, we need better security, let's find the money, let's put it over here. But if the property management isn't telling the board doesn't know what to do. And then bring in your third defendant, you've got the security company. Now in this case, the security company had recently been hired by the property manager. Property manager didn't tell security company about all the problems they had had going on months before, so security company is in the dark. They don't know what full extent they need to come in and what services they provide. So you've got all these three defendants who don't know what the other one's doing. But at the end of the day, and we talked about apportionment earlier, and I know you're going to get into it.
Yeah.
That's where it all boils down to really the property manager, because they were the ones keeping everyone else in the dark.
And I want to get to the specific trial, like what it was like. But talking about the jury's decision here, and they broke it down in terms of responsibility based on what Grant said. I mean, can you explain how you think the jury came, like 18%, 18%? Like, how did they come up with who was responsible for what, you think?
So the evidence was exactly what Grant said. The evidence was that the property management company was getting information from security, from tenants, from guests, and then also from the condo association about crime on the property. And they weren't relaying it to condo owners who could make decisions or security who could also make their own decisions. So that failure in communicating the information, they had the football, they were supposed to pass that football to the decision maker. That failure to pass the information, we felt, made the management company most liable for this. Because if security is doing their job and writing up incident reports for things that happen and passing it to the office, what's the next thing that should happen? The office should send it to the board. Should tell the board, hey, we had a shooting, we had a robbery, we had a break into a vehicle. What do you want to do? We recommend you increase security. We recommend you change protocols at the gate, which is ultimately what led to Jason's death. There was a protocol for checking vehicles at the gate. If you rolled up to the gate, you'd have to put down your window, give an ID, say, I'm going to see tenant Jesse. They'd call Jesse, and if you said, yeah, Tom can come up, they'd be allowed through. Mm-hmm. But if Jesse said, no, they can't come through, the car would be directed to make a U-turn and leave. If they didn't leave, they call the police.
Yeah.
So that maintains controlled access to the property. So if they're doing their job, and security's doing their job, and taking incident reports, giving it to the management office should be communicating that information to the board. And so we'll get into it, but there was a prior incident in February 2021 where this same shooter came on the property, got through the gate in violation of their protocol, and ended up showing up to the door of the tenant with a gun, banging on the door saying, let me in, I know you got a guy in there.
It was a different person, by the way.
Different person.
Yeah. Before we, again, go to the trial, just want to ask you a follow-up on that. Why was Mears a part of this, right? Why was the tenant a part of this? She wasn't a defendant, per se, right? But the jury, in the end, believed that she was somewhat responsible, too?
In Florida, you can argue that a person who's a non-party bears some responsibility for a negligent incident.
Okay.
And so they felt, or the defendants argued, that Miss Mears, when she woke up on the morning of June 1st at 8 a.m. to a knock on her door, thinking it was property management, and opened the door and allowed the shooter in, he was bum rushed at the door. The jury felt that she was partially responsible for not checking the eyeglass or the peephole at the door.
Okay, and then you go to the jury, right? You go to the trial. What was it like to try the case, and what was the defense? Was it putting the blame, like you said, was it putting it on Mears? Hey, it was her responsibility. I mean, what was their defense? What were you arguing?
So what you've got three defendants that are all pointing the finger at each other. Imagine, you've all seen it, that Spider-Man meme with three Spider-Mans. They're all pointing at each other.
Yeah.
That's what's going on with the three defendants. And then they're ganging up together to point the finger at Mears. So no one's taking any amount of responsibility. They're all blaming each other, and then they're getting together and all blaming Mears. So the problem is, and what was very difficult about the prep of this trial, is you've got all this information, a lot of facts. It can get confusing as heck. Somehow you've got to distill it and boil it down to make it digestible in a way that a jury is going to be able to say, oh, I see what A did wrong, I see what B did wrong, and I see what C did wrong. And that was hard. But it starts in jury selection with that conversation about, by the way, there's not one defendant here, there's three of them, and then into opening, which Tom gave a beautiful opening. And then throughout the trial, we keep that theme going. We keep the jury's focus on everyone did something wrong here. However, there was one defendant that did the most wrong. And at the end of the trial, it came out that way we presented the evidence.
And I believe it only took them 2 hours to come back.
Under 2 hours, an hour and 47 minutes.
They came back $100 million. My understanding is, what was the highest? Was the offer like a $1 million? I mean, can you explain what that was and how you think the jury came to $100 million?
You tell them what it was, and I'm going to tell how I think the jury came to the $100 million.
Sure.
Fair.
So yes, the pre-verdict offer was $1 million.
Okay.
And
so this was
good tag teaming.
This was the hardest. This was the hardest part of the trial.
Yeah.
To figure out what the value is, because we're talking about a young man who lost his life. We're talking about a young family. We're talking about a mom and dad who, while I told the jury that their son is still their son, Jason's dad goes to the graveyard every week and sits with them. How do you put a price on that? And when we started this trial, Tom and I talked about values and numbers. I talked to some of the other members of the trial team. I always love talking to non-attorneys to get their idea. And numbers were all over the map. Some people told me 15 million was egregious and too much to ask for. Some people said that I should go in and ask for 150 million. And I didn't know what to do. And quite honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do until the morning of the closing. And I was sitting at the JW Marriott in Miami having coffee, and I told one of the attorneys trying the case with us, Patrick, I said, I think I'm just going to talk. I'm going to tell him what I think. And here's what I think. I think, as a human being, this case is worth $200 million.
Yeah.
Because it is. But I also think you're going to think I'm crazy for asking that. And my job for the Campbells is to be an advocate, someone that can talk and persuade and convince, but also show the truth. And in order to do that effectively, you all cannot think I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. So asking for $200,000 or $200 million, you could think I'm nuts. So as a lawyer, I'm telling you this case is worth $80 million. And here's where the hard part comes. Because now I've just done the easy part for you. The easy part is 80 million to 200. Somewhere in between there lies justice. And I don't know where it is. But I'll tell you, it's somewhere in between 80 and 200. And now you go find it.
Wow.
And they came back, and they did the right thing.
Yeah.
They found it. They did exactly what we asked. Go find justice.
And speaking of justice, what's the status? Has there been any payout so far?
There has not been a payout yet. We've reached a settlement with the property management company.
Okay.
Which is, the number is confidential, but we've reached a settlement with them, and we are proceeding against the condo association.
Okay. Are you confident that will be paid out to the family in the near future?
Which?
The settlement.
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
In fact, Tom just attended a hearing yesterday in Miami to get the minor settlement approved from the property management. So
okay.
We anticipate the family should be seeing their funds probably within the next 30 days. from the property management.
Okay. And how's the family doing at this point? How have they been going? I mean, obviously what they went through is unimaginable. It's heartbreaking. You explained it very well. But, you know, going through the legal process is another part. And now this is another part. How are they doing at this point?
They're doing well. The Campbells were actually in our office on Friday. The mom and dad cooked up an amazing Jamaican lunch for us and brought food for the lawyers and our teams. And so we got to have lunch with them, and it was great to see them. Hubert still goes to his son's grave every week. The holidays, even 5 years, 4 years later, were very tough for them. He was in our office a month ago crying about loss of his son, and Daphne's the same way. And so they are still broken, but they are happy that there is a partial conclusion. They are forever happy about the verdict that the jury provided them, the justice jury provided them. And then obviously been in a lot of contact with the mothers as well.
Yeah.
And the kids are doing good.
I ask you that.
And they're getting older every day, obviously. But the kids are doing good, and moms are taking good care of them.
That's great. And Grant, I mean, you think about this. What is the message a case like this sends after trying it, after getting this conclusion?
We never want our verdicts to be messages because they're so personal.
Right.
They're so personal to the family. But at the same time, it should be a cautionary tale of warning that when you, as a defendant, when you as an insurance company have the opportunity to do the right thing, and you are given that opportunity for years, not once, not twice, but dozens of times, and you think that just because you have all the cards in your favor, because you're big, because you're powerful, because you think that no one can come and get you, at the end of the day, truth always finds a way. And what that means is that when truth comes to light, justice comes forward. And that's what trials are about, and that's what the jury system is about. It's not perfect, but it is the greatest system of justice that this world has ever known. And so the word of warning, the message to send to those big insurance companies, those megacorps, do what's right the first time. Because if you don't, there are attorneys, there are firms, there are families who will hold you to task and who will bring truth and justice out.
I don't know a better way to end it. Grant, thank you so much.
Nice
Tom,
you.
thank you so much. Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on to explain a little bit more of the work that Morgan & Morgan did in this very specific case. And I'll just say our hearts and our prayers are with that family as they go through this next chapter. And really appreciate you both coming on to explain it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी सुल्तान भी आए बड़े बड़े सुल्तान भी आए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी जुल्म कमांदे दगा फरेब ते जुल्म कमांदे हाय कुछ नहीं खड़दे नाल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कुछ नहीं खड़दे नाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया देंदी दुख बतेरे दुनिया देंदी दुख बतेरे वीरा कोलू वीर नखेड़े वीरा कोलू वीर नखेड़े आए मावा तू विछड़े लाल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए मावा तू विछड़े लाल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी सुख दे सजना सारे संगी सुख दे सजना सारे संगी नस जांदे जद आवे तंगी नस जांदे जद आवे तंगी हाय कोई नहीं गम दा प्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओह कोई नहीं गम दा प्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हंसना रोना गम लाचारी हंसना रोना गम लाचारी आज मेरी कल तेरी बारी आज मेरी कल तेरी बारी हाय कंजरी दी मिसाल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओह कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी गुत वे तुड़ानी मिट्टी दा वीरा गुत तुड़ानी मिट्टी दा वीरा अपना आप संभाल बशीरा अपना आप संभाल बशीरा हाय मिट्टी मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय मिट्टी मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी ओ दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा मिट्टी दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हाय कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदा वे मौत दा माल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन दी आए कर तू कुछ ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी सुल्तान भी आए बड़े बड़े सुल्तान भी आए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए ओढ़क जा बिच खाक समाए हरे हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी हरे हो गए ख्वाब ख्याल दुनिया दो दिन दी दुनिया दो दिन दी बंदावे मौत दमाल दुनिया दो दिन